For anybody that's not going to stay for the whole meeting, leave if you can just put your chair back on the rack, we would sure appreciate it. And also with the agency reports, if we can kind of keep them as brief as possible, because we have a full meeting tonight, so we sure would appreciate it. We're going to start off with the agency reports. California Highway Patrol representative. Oh, he's in his cities. Officer Hal.
How you doing, sir?
Good, how about you?
Miss you guys. It's been a while, huh?
It's been a while, been too long.
So this is the uniform of the day. We were doing active shooter all day, so that's kind of the new thing that we're getting everyone trained up on. So I started my day at 6 o'clock this morning. It's been a long day. As far as the month of August, I just went back to August. I didn't see you guys in August, so I'll just do August numbers. That's okay with you guys. We're back on track with getting our sites from the state. There was an issue in the past where I wasn't able to give you guys the total sites for the month. But for the month of August, there's 106 sites for Agua Dulce area, which is really, really strong. As far as arrests, there was 20 total. There was 17 DUIs. There was 1 stolen vehicle recovered. There was 1 arrest for 23-103, which is reckless driving. So that could be a number of things. It could have been someone racing down maybe Sierra, or it could have been someone just driving reckless. And like we discussed before in the past, if someone's crossing over double yellow lines, and that includes speed, that could actually, from a couple different infractions, turn into a misdemeanor, and that is an arrestable offense. So there was an arrest for reckless driving in your area, and there was 1 hit and run. As far as collision go, for the Newhall area, there's 290 collisions. For this area specific, there was 19 collisions. So there was 15 property only. There was 3 involving minor injuries, which could be just basic complaint of pain. And then there was 1 1180, which is major injuries, which would include some kind of major visible injury. So a total of 19. As far as the different events that we have coming up, I know we have the parade. I will be there. I'll be in the parade. I'm not in the parade, but I'll be at the parade. So I'll be at the parade. Myself and Officer Munez will be at the parade. And then we're going to have a total of 6 of our senior volunteers. And I'm just going to follow their protocol. They've done it a lot more times than I have. They kind of know what they're doing, so I'm going to follow their lead. And then Detective Q, the deputy, he's going to be here also. So this is my first time with the parade. So I'm looking forward to getting my feet wet. So next year I don't feel still be on the curve.
Watch the landmines, there's a lot of horses.
Well, so they told me that myself and another officer are going to be at the very end. So we're just going to be driving over it. Go through. That's our role.
That's how it gets cleaned up.
So I guess a heads up, last year or the year before there was a DUI on a horse.
Yes, there was.
It happens, everybody. DUI on a horse. Was that 3 years ago?
Was it the horse or was it?
I think they both were hitting the side.
Yeah. The funniest thing was that Officer Vargas had to take down a horse, and he didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, what do you do with the horse, right? I don't know. I'm talking to you guys like professionals out here. I think they make some good. Just, it's one of those things, just kind of pass the word. We're just there to keep the peace, to make sure everyone is safe and no one gets injured or acts foolish. But we are there for enforcement. So our role specifically for myself, my partner, is going to be for enforcement, and the traffic control will be done by the volunteers. We're going to be there for enforcement. We're going to keep our eyes out just to make sure everyone stays safe. Has a good time. Another good report is, have you guys seen the commercial truck in this area at all? It's a CHP pickup truck with a camper shop.
Yes.
That's very good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So Officer Powers, he's our commercial officer, and he was in this area specific 10 days in the month of August, and that's really strong because we are on a 15-day working schedule. So he was 10 out of his 15 days he was in this area, and he knows that the dump trucks is an issue with you guys. So unfortunately, they're like a ghost, man. We see them, but we don't see. I would love to come back and say I got a few of them, but I see them, they behave themselves when we're around. I'm in that white vehicle, and usually people don't see me until it's too late. And he's the same thing. He has his eye open for the dump trucks, and what he's really getting in this area is speed. So a lot of speed, and then of course double yellows, but more speed than double yellows. And just to share one more thing with you guys, we are now going up to Green Valley. Is it Green Valley? Up there in San Francisco. So that area is Antelope Valley CHP's area. It's not Newhall. I'm from Newhall. This is Newhall area. That's why, of course, I'm the rep for you guys. We just started going to their city council meetings because there's an issue with the double yellows all through San Francisco. And I talked to you guys before in the past. We just got an ops plan okayed by division yesterday, and we're going to have a big operation on San Francisco. So if you guys use that, we're going to be out there heavy. We're already out there heavy, and we're going to be out there even more. And we're going to have an ops plan that's going to stake the area from different hilltops, and we're going to be radioing in cars that are passing over double yellow lines. And it's going to be a huge. It'll probably hit the paper. It's going to be a real big deal. So don't get caught up in that. Because what happens is, and I promise you, I'll see one of you, and you're like, "Hey, Officer Hallgren, you were in that red shirt last week. We're friends." And I'm like, "Here's your parting gift, right?" So you're still going to get a sight because we have to be out there to manage what's going on out there. So we'll still be friends, we'll part as friends, but we'll get a little gift, right?
You talked last time that you were considering doing that on Sierra Highway. Yes.
Sierra Highway, we're already hammered. So Sierra Highway, we have a commercial unit there. He's over there. Like I said, 10 out of 15 days, very strong. And then we have Robert units, and what a Robert unit is it's a CHP unit that is designated specifically for county roads only. So as you know, we have, if you guys know the 5 freeway, if you head north and go towards like Fraser Park, right there at the 138, that's where we start, right? And we also take the 138 towards Lancaster. And then you take the 5 freeway all the way down to the 14, to the 210, the 405, and the 5. We take it all the way out to the 118. So if you can imagine, if your family's stranded out there at the 405 and the 118, and then we get a call on the 138, at nighttime, and I've shared this with you guys before, at nighttime when I go back to tell the graveyard guys, hey, good job, because the rest are strong in your area, very good. There's usually 3 or 4 guys there for the whole area. And those 3 or 4 guys have to pair up. So now you have 2 vehicles for the whole entire area. We're slim, really, really slim. That being said, for the A-Watch, which is from 0500, so 5 o'clock in the morning till 3:30, we have units, at least 1, sometimes 2, designated just for county areas. And that's because you guys wanted it, so I go back and I push for it for you guys.
We see it, we appreciate it.
Very good.
Very much.
All right, perfect. And okay, so I'll share a quick story for you. So we went to the town council meeting last month, and for San Francisco area, which is, like I said, we're taking over as Antelope Valley area. We do it anyways. Very nice, right? And the biggest thing was double yellows. And so what we discussed is it's not just the double yellow crossing, it's speed. Because the people that are speeding are the ones that are in a hurry, and those are the ones that typically cross over double yellow lines, right? So we had this big discussion, and some of the heads of the table were like, no, it's double yellow. We're like, well, it's speed. Speed translates into all, it's a catch-all. So with that being said, we ticketed 3 out of the 4 members. For speed, they're in their area. So, if you ask for it, it'll show up, and you may be like, wow, it's not really me, or wow, so just be careful what you ask for. When we show up, it's, right.
We came out with 63.
They said the same thing, but we got 3. Right. So, anyways, that's all I have. I will see you guys this weekend, sir.
Last night at this time, just up back with Ellison Canyon Road at the curve, right before your place. There was some police activity. Is there an elected sit rep available?
It was a film job.
It was filming.
It was filming, and I'm going to address that. I'm going to address that. It was not a good thing.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have Los Angeles County Sheriff Deputy Scott Short, not here. Okay. All right, we'll slip him in. Los Angeles County Fire Department, Community Service Rep, Maria. Is it
Grycan.
Grycan,
Yes. Okay, for the month of August, there were a total of 30 responses. 21 of those were for medical calls, and of those 21, 11 were transported. We did have 3 fires. All 3 of them were vehicle fires. We had 1 hazardous condition, which was faulty wiring on Barber Road. On our medical calls, we did, just to kind of echo what Officer Hallgren said, we had 9 total traffic collisions that we responded to. So of the 19, because we said a lot of them were just property, but we did respond to 9 of them. And 1 of them was over the side, and 1 of them was a person trapped. That is all I have for the report. Are there any questions for the report before I say 2 other things quickly? Okay. First one, Engine 81 will proudly be in the parade on Saturday, and you will get your flyover from the helicopter as well, provided that they're not responding to any other fires in the area, but it is on their calendar. And then the last thing that I have, I would like to introduce to you Acting Assistant Fire Chief Anderson Mackey. So he has taken over. Just say hello.
First off, I'd like to say hello. Happy to be here. So I have 29 years of experience in the job, and the last 5 months I've been here in Santa Cruz. Prior to that, I've spent 9 years in administrative positions, so I'm happy to be out here meeting everyone and learning my communities that I'm responsible for. Welcome.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Acton Agua Dulce Library, temporary. Steve.
Hi everybody, I'm filling in for Jim Wall. His wife had a baby today.
Oh.
So I'll be here for a month. But I just want to see you guys. So I'm kind of got put into the fire here today. So he has a few notes that we wanted to go over. The library will be closed for Columbus Day on October 9th. Also, this year we're going to have 2 days off for Veterans Day, because Veterans Day is actually on Saturday. And so we'll be off on Friday and Saturday, so the library will be closed then as well. We're going to be screening a documentary called Brown is the New Green on September 25th at the library, if you'd like to come over and see that. The Acton Agua Dulce Library will also be having a blood drive on October 23rd, so if you're interested in donating some blood, you can make an appointment online. It's at the redcrossblood.org. And if you go in the sponsor code Acton Library, it'll get you your reservation there as well. If you guys have any kids, at home, grandkids, whatever, that need online homework help, we have a live online homework help that you can come in and visit us, and we'll get you guys all set up on that. It's live, so that way you guys can have that done. And that's really all that I had for you guys tonight. If there's any questions or comments or anything. All right.
Thank you very much. And it looks like we have our resident deputy, Scott Short, here. So.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I missed the first half, but you know how it is when somebody on the freeway demands your complete. But I'll be seeing them in about 60 days. They got a partner. You don't pass me at 85 miles an hour on the freeway and expect not to get my attention. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't see that car next to me with the lights on.
It's all right.
I'm not going to say anything. All right, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a nice August off. I did drive by and wave, but nobody waved back. All right, I'll cover July's real quick since we missed that one, and then I'll cover August. Okay, in July we had 12 total incidents that resulted in reports. We had, let's see if I can see what this is. 2 aggravated assaults, 1 grand theft, 2 frauds, 1 non-aggravated assault. You know, I've always been confused with that because if I get hit, it's still aggravated. But that's the way we do it. 1 weapons laws, 1 misdemeanor vandalism, 1 miscellaneous misdemeanor, 1 non-criminal, 1 towed boat or car, and 1 misdemeanor vehicle or boat citation. And they put vehicle and boat in the same. Aircraft is its own category, so then we would know if I cited an aircraft for speeding. And I have waited at the airport with a radar gun. Just kidding. Yeah, the assaults, by the way, took place not in town. They were all in some area on Soledad Canyon, where they have trailers and stuff. But it's in your area, so it gets reported. And then for last month, we had a total of 5. And let's see where this one real quick. Okay. Yeah, we had a grand theft vehicle, 1 theft of utilities, 1 misdemeanor boating law, 1 non-criminal, and 1 vehicle repossessed. Now, the vehicle repossessed we don't do, but the repossessor calls in, we give them a report number just like it would be a criminal report, so it gets logged as a stat. So, but that's it, we had 5. Yeah, the grand theft vehicle happened on Sierra Highway. And if I remember, and I could be wrong, but I think there was one where they had it running with keys in the ignition and door.
I would always say,
Crime of opportunity. And yeah, so it was a good month for August. So, and it was a little warm.
Have you been reporting the mail thefts, because they're still posting, and I'm telling you, you've got to report mail thefts.
No, there's only nothing here, otherwise.
There was 6 last week.
Was there? I know we had 1 that was reported as a vandalism to the mailbox. And I saw the report come in that said vandalism to a mailbox, but it didn't say anything about mail theft on it. So, you know, unfortunately, if they tell the deputy who shows up, you know, I'm not sure if anything was taken, I'm not missing any mail. They just vandalized my box, then.
If everybody signs up for informed delivery with UPS, your
Right.
postal service, you get an email every day.
Right.
It shows you exactly what's coming in your mail that day.
Yeah.
And if you don't get something, you check a box and they will investigate it. But that way you know whether or not something is missing, and it's free.
And there's a lot of people that have post office boxes in like stores and buildings, and they don't get anything in their house. Everything goes there. So if it's junk mail, it'll get put in their mailbox, and they don't care whether that gets taken or not. I know we've had a couple of cases in Acton where the people admitted, you know what, I didn't check my mailbox for 2 weeks. I don't always check it. And when I went in, the lid was broken, and it looks like stuff had gone through. Well, unfortunately, how do you know what was stolen after 2 weeks if you're not checking your mail?
Like I said, this informed delivery. is
Yeah,
really
informed
nice.
delivery, yeah. And I understand that's a free service you
It
can
is, it's
sign up
free.
for. So it's a good thing to look
It
at.
is.
And then, of course, the break's coming up, so we're getting ready for that. So, yes, sir.
Pretty short, I had a question, in the interest of time, I'll be quick. There was a drone today, I don't know if you heard about that or not, flying up and down Agua Dulce Canyon. And at the same time, there was the fire drill going on with the helicopters, right?
Okay.
Or one helicopter, actually.
2 of them.
2?
Yeah, the red one and the blue one.
And I'm unclear about, I hear all kinds of different things about what, this drone was right above my property and went, past maybe 7 or 8 times. And it's the first time I've ever experienced it,
Yeah.
It was kind of, invasive. And I don't know what the law is regarding that. Can you just shed some light on it?
Unfortunately, we had a big briefing, and I've got the FAA regulations. To fly a drone, you have to have a pilot's license. And it's a drone license. But you better have taken flight school or ground school because you're not gonna really pass it. I saw the test from one of our guys in search and rescue took. It's a pretty difficult test because you got no currents and airplane and compass and all that bit. The other one's catching. Legally, you can fly a drone anywhere. You can fly
over
over,
property.
yeah, because you don't go in your airspace.
How about over
I
there?
would not.
Over the airport, no. If it interferes with flight, fire helicopters and sheriff's helicopters, if there's a drone in the area, they'll land immediately. They'll put down and not come out. And we've already, and then if we find the owner, it's a pretty hefty citation because now you've endangered somebody by making a
I
fire
have a
helicopter.
picture of the drone and the helicopter at the same time, and I tracked down who it was because I was going to pick up my son from school, and they were on the side of the road, right at the corner of, I got their license plate.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'll take that one. So and I'll talk to the fire.
That was a big one.
Yeah. If it's commercial drone, that's a whole different, you can't fly commercial, you have to have a license, it's limited, they're limited to 500 feet, and there's certain things, like the drone can't go and stand in front of your bedroom window and look. No. Not that it hasn't been tried.
The helicopters were practicing today. The
Yeah.
red one and the sky crane and the blue one, they were both out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if somebody was out there with it, and if they felt the drone was close and had to sit down, that's why I said I'll get the
They were
information.
making a film, they said, and, they seem to be like, maybe in their 20s, like film school types.
Yeah, yeah.
And
'Cause
they were very close to I tried for quite some time, and I finally was able to get them both at the
Okay.
same time.
Cool,
And I got their license plate.
I'll get that from you, so. All right, any other, yes, sir.
You know, we had an incident over at the active 4th of July parade with the drone.
Yes, we
We were
did.
trying to track the guy down, and he buried himself before we could get him.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Proactively, let's keep our minds open for that, for our parade, in case somebody pops out with one.
Yeah,
We should be on the alert in case.
Yeah, I mean, they could legally fly over the parade route, it's not.
But there's gonna be air traffic.
Yeah, if you have a flyover and it interferes, that's like I said, if it interferes with aircraft, different story.
Did you see that guy, obviously on the most wanted list on next door, did you see that? The sex offender,
Oh, yeah.
you saw that? He just got on the active.
Well, I've got to check into that because he was arrested
I know, but how come he went on the list yesterday? On the most wanted list?
because he may have skipped his bail and then not go to court, but they arrested him the day it happened and took him into custody. I arrested him 2 months before for failing to register. And he had his 10 days and got out and registered and moved into his little RV. And then, yeah, apparently he had a little bit more to show than what people wanted. So they arrested him as violation, and apparently he got out. So we're looking for him because, yeah, he is now, in the way the registration is, if you, on your birthday, you register January every year. If you move, you have like 5 days to report to a sheriff's station or a police station to register that I am now in your area. If you don't do that, you could be in violation and be rearrested and serve the rest of your sentence. Same thing, once a year, I get all the registrants, I get a piece of paper for each one with their picture, and I have to go to their house and then check and make sure where they're living, make sure that they're doing legal, have them sign a document that I see them every year. And so I pretty much, search and rescue team on the quads, didn't find it. We're going out again to look, but we don't know, we have no idea whether he went with somebody or whether he took off walking. I mean, one of the theories talking to homicide is, real quick, gee, he got lost. He used to live in Acton, in Santiago State, years and years ago. Moved in with his daughter, lived with her a few years. Apparently they had a disagreement. He packed up and left. So what his car was doing there, we don't know. He may have mild dementia or onset Alzheimer's. Maybe he got confused, parked, and we're thinking, maybe he saw the freeway lights and decided to just walk. Because the car showed up about 11 o'clock at night. And it's been there for several days.
Was the car disabled?
Was that?
Was the car disabled?
No.
Oh, so it's drivable.
Key phone, a cell phone, keys, wallet, soap, toothbrush, razor were in the front seat. Half a tank of gas started right up. So it's like, okay, maybe he was confused and went off walking towards the lights. I've been checking all the businesses, the storage yards, but we're going to be going out again with the horse team this time and the search and rescue and have a big effort to cover that whole area, so. We'll see what we can do, hopefully we'll find him. Either that or he got, called a friend, picked up, left his stuff there because he didn't want to, you know, don't talk to me anymore, and made a start, we don't know. So. But anyway, flyers are back there. Anybody sees them, we appreciate a call.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bronson from Assemblyman Dante Acosta.
I'll be quick too.
Okay.
It's pretty busy up in Sacramento right now. They're wrapping the year up, so there's several hundred bills that they need to still hear. So they're working hard up there. And the Assembly member has a couple that are still in the works, and one has to do with it's a tool for law enforcement as it relates to invasion of privacy. And another one has to do with Sierra Highway that I mentioned another time when I was here. And that would be with the city taking over a portion of Sierra Highway and owning that, and that's between Golden Valley and Friendly Valley. A couple of things that we're doing, I'll have a lot more to add next month after the session is over, and we kind of know what bills, how things have what's been voted on, what's in, what's out. But a couple of things that we're doing here in the district, women's self-defense class, we're going to be doing that with Senator Brooks' office. We're doing some pop-up offices as well. We're calling them commuter coffees. And some things with seniors. And then we'll also be doing an open house in December that I'll get you guys more information on how to get it. District office. If you guys have an issue with the state agency, feel free to reach out to our office for assistance. The phone number is 661-286-1565. Whoever answers the phone can help you, or feel free to ask for me, and I'm happy to assist with any of the state agencies. We're working on some things regarding Hispanic Heritage Month, and you will see the assembly member out here on Saturday. He will be in the parade.
Awesome.
So, and as I mentioned when I close almost every time, make sure that you go online to claimit.ca.gov and look for any unclaimed property that you might have that the state now is taking care of. You know, all you need to do is put your name in, and the address will pop up. You can see if that belongs to you. Maybe relatives have some property, but there is a lot of property that the state's holding on to that they want to give back to the rightful owners. So, any questions for me? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And one other change, we're going to go ahead and have the presentation before we have Rosalind's report, if that's okay. So first up, we have on the proposed animal facility at 34128 Agua Dulce Canyon Road, Sunny Days Acres. First up, we have Justine Turner who's asked to make a presentation to us.
Broke my foot. My name is Justine Turner, and I've lived on Yucca Hills Road with my family since 1992. I'm here today because I wanted to present issues residents in my neighborhood are facing now that the county zoning regulations for animals and animal facilities have changed this year. What used to be allowed in Agua Dulce, my understanding, was a reasonable limit on dogs and moved animals per acre, and a CUP application for animal facilities above the animal limit was required. But now my understanding is that, specifically my understanding is that animal facilities before this year needed to apply for a CUP in order to assess compatibility with surrounding land uses, assess conditions to ensure compatibility, land suitability, and physical constraints, delineate project design, and address availability of adequate access and potential environmental impacts and mitigation measures. I want to thank the town council for trying to protect our community's interests in urging the county zoning enforcement to not raise the limit on animals and to not remove the CUP requirement for animal facilities due to all the negative impacts that can occur and need review and mitigation. But unfortunately, the county didn't listen to town council's opinion, and they changed the zoning rules, and it greatly increased the number of animals allowed, including dogs, and removed the needs to apply for CUP. It is now animal control who determines the number of dogs or animals allowed, as I understand it. In June, I read on Facebook on one of our Agua Dulce site pages that an 18-acre parcel that our road, Yucca Hills, crosses, that has a legal address of 34128 Agua Dulce Canyon Road that is actually kind of sandwiched. It's at the end of White Fox Road in Yucca Hills, had sold to the owners of Sunny Day Acres on Escondido Canyon Road. The post on Facebook said they were planning on putting in a dog rescue and a farm animal sanctuary. I contacted the town council then to see if they knew anything about it and if they had any info, and they didn't really. And I spoke to my neighbors, and I was told by a neighbor who had spoken to the owners that they were planning on putting in a large animal facility with a farm animal sanctuary, dog rescue, dog boarding, and dog training. And so I was upset to hear this for many different reasons. At this point, the owners heard of my concern and started reaching out to the town council and Country Journal, saying they were going to have a farm sanctuary, a dog rescue for rescuing dogs and rehabbing them for adoption, permanent homes for unadoptable dogs, and they'd be offering private and group dog training classes with very little traffic. There was no mention of the dog boarding. I decided to call Jennifer Gray, who's Sunny Day Acres, one of the owners. I'm not exactly sure of all the ownership with Shane and that, but I was dealing with Jennifer. So I called her because I wanted to ask her myself directly, okay, you know, what are your plans for developing that property that you bought, the 18-acre parcel? And she told me she was not going to be living on the property and there would be caretakers residing there, and that she planned on having rescue dogs, which she rehabs and then adopts out, or she'll keep them long-term or permanently if they're not adoptable. And she was going to be having dog training classes and workshops, primarily on the weekends, which she has at her Escondido facility now, and the farm animal sanctuary with many different kinds of animals. When I asked her how many dogs she was planning on having on the property with the rescue, you know, rehab dogs kind of thing, she stated 20 to 50. And I told her we already have a dog kennel with a German Shepherd breeder almost adjacent to the property they bought, who we had to take to animal control court twice due to excessive barking in the past, and that it would really be too many dogs on the road and also way too much traffic. And at that point, she was not really willing to discuss less dogs or a compromise at that time. So I was then told by a neighbor that Jennifer planned on having dog boarding on the property, even though that wasn't really stated in the Country Journal or to the town council. So I started researching more and found a GoFundMe page for raising money to purchase the property on Yucca Hills for expansion of their facilities and services from Escondido to Yucca Hills. They were going to expand to Yucca Hills. They called the White Fox Yucca Hills property a blank slate, and Jennifer stated on this GoFundMe thing that they'd be continuing to board and train rescue dogs for adoption and provide sanctuary for dogs with illnesses or problems that made them not suitable for adoption. And then there's the farm animal sanctuary. In the post, Jennifer asked if people had seen the movie We Bought a Zoo, and said their property is the same size as the one in the movie, and they're going to make it into a doggy land zoo camp on Yucca Hills Road. I also found a Sunny Day Acres ad for upcoming boarding services at 34128 White Fox Road, which is 34128 is the Agua Dulce Canyon address. Back in the old days, they had the post box there. It didn't go all the way down White Fox. So she just added that number to White Fox on the ad. And it said that they were going to be offering boarding services at the property on White Fox Yucca Hills Road. And then I've got an interview on live TV. Jennifer discussed her facility on Escondido, which has dog rescue adoptions, dog training, dog boarding. Said they have done about 1,200 dogs in the last 6 years. They've adopted out, rescued. And she mentioned in the interview they'd be expanding to Yucca Hills and that they are open to the public. At this point, some residents on White Fox, Yucca Hills, and Copper Rock and Sierra Colony, including myself, became alarmed. Now it appeared we would have a farm animal sanctuary, dog boarding, dog training, dog rescue adoption facility open to the public on our private dirt road. White Fox Road, which Jennifer in my conversation had said they'd be using White Fox also. They have repeatedly chained off their road to residents on Yucca Hills. We had a renter that was using a lot. And they chained it off because they said, you don't have access on White Fox, you can't use White Fox. So I don't know if she's got access, but if she doesn't, they'll chain it off. And so I was very concerned about the traffic would primarily be on Yucca Hills Road, which is one way in and out. We do not have any alternate way in and out. It's a residential road with about 24 houses. And the residents, we maintain the road ourselves. So we pay for any grading, any improvements. We had the road wash out with a major storm. We had to put in an Arizona crossing. You know, it's maybe, you know, we need more maintenance. But we pay for it. Yucca Hills Road pays for all the maintenance. With a farm sanctuary and dogs, it could be easily over 100 animals on the road because you could have all the animals she was saying in the farm sanctuary. There was a lot. And then with dogs, and if she had dog boarding, and I don't know. But with the dogs, 20 to 50 dogs, we'd be in danger if we need to evacuate from a fire. We only have one way out, and their property is for all the houses. If you're going in, their property is first. So if we were trying to come out to evacuate, and they were evacuating 100 animals, we could have a major problem right there. As far as this facility's compatibility with surrounding land uses, I'm kind of doing my own CUP here. As far as this facility's compatibility with surrounding land uses, it's not compatible due to the number of dogs that they were planning on having and the huge increase in traffic on a private road. These multiple new dog and farm animal facilities would bring unbearable noise from barking dogs, dog training classes, dog boarders coming and going out, etc. Our fear is that with a farm sanctuary, there would become another Joan barn if it was open to the public, which we all know has horrible traffic, and a lot of people go there. The traffic from feed trucks, veterinarians, volunteers to feed and clean all the animals, clean the animal pens, corrals, you know, and everything. Visitors to the sanctuary, people dropping off and picking up dogs to board, people attending private and group dog classes, which they have very large workshops, big group classes, lots of people in them on Escondido, and people coming to see rescue dogs for adoption would be unbearable. So if you just figure, if she told me 20 to 50 rescue dogs that we're going to have, let's just, and 10 to 20 dogs boarded, say 20 to 60 dogs a day on the weekend for the classes, the minimum would be like 50 dogs on the road, and the maximum could be around 140. As far as physical constraints and available access, both Caprock Road and Yucca Hills have, you know, only one in and out. Yucca Hills is a private road, not a public road. There's also a blind curve on Yucca Hills Road at the entrance and exit to their parcel. The road is maintained by the 21st residents, as I said, and it crosses as an easement across Sierra Colony properties to get to the 18-acre parcel. Yucca Hills Road from Caprock to the Sunny Days Acres property runs in the Los Angeles County Flood Control Channel and alongside a designated stream bed that's part of the Santa Clara River watershed. The property literally has the river flow through it when there's a heavy rain, as it did in August, which, you know, is inappropriate in my opinion for animals. On their Sunny Day Acres Facebook, which they've taken down, they literally said the chickens were in 6 inches of water after that big rain we had, like in the beginning of August. And it's also not good. It is a stream bed. It does go into the Santa Clara is a wild river. If you've got, you know, urine and things all going into this stream, it's not good. So potential environmental impacts, and I'm almost done, are noise from barking dogs, smell, flies, fecal matter and urine in the stream bed, and the Santa Clara River drainage, heavy traffic compared to the current traffic, which will cause a lot of dust and will disturb residents and wildlife on the wash, which is, it's always been kind of a wildlife corridor. Our road runs through a wash, which is the flood channel stream bed. And we get a lot of animals that go through there, including mountain lions, which I don't like. But it will impact our wells for the amount of water being used for animals to drink, and for cleaning, and all that stuff, other stuff. They also brought in a mountain, literally a mountain of fill dirt, which I don't know if that was clean, and they graded vegetation and spread the dirt. And I just read in the Country Journal that grading and removing vegetation is supposed to require minor CUP. On September 2nd, the owners held a get-together on their property that I couldn't attend, I was out of town, that they invited Sierra Colony and Yucca Hills residents to because they found out there was a letter circulating for signatures in Sierra Colony opposing the negative impacts of their businesses. Over 40 people attended from Yucca Hills and Sierra Colony, and I've been told by a neighbor who attended that those attending were mainly concerned about the traffic and the dogs barking. Nobody wants to hear the dogs. We already had that problem with the kennel. I was told that the owners told those attending only 10 dogs would reside on the property now, and there'd be dog training classes in the farm sanctuary area, and it wouldn't be open to the public. This is a substantially different plan than what they fundraised for, advertised, and what they told me. But the dog training, but it's been changing, as you can see, as time's gone on. The dog training classes alone are a big source of traffic. This illustrates, I think, all the problems when you don't have a CUP application that spells out the project scope and design, all the negative impacts, the compatibility with the surrounding land uses, conditions to ensure compatibility, and mitigation measures. The changing project scope and design is like trying to hold a greased pig. You know, I don't know what they're doing there at this point. They've said so many different things. And in general terms, without a CUP, we don't even know if they have proper permits, or what the final design is and plan. And if they finally decide to go with maybe a larger plan, you change their mind again, that they could have 30 dogs or whatever, a boarding facility, training, and there's no restriction and conditions to stop them without the CUP. There's nothing. And the only kind of restriction is animal control has the discretion to choose how many animals they can have on the property. I'm still, not sure, as I said, as what their planning is, but they've applied for 10 kennel permits. With the new zoning regulations, animal facilities are an approved use. This is a danger really to everybody in Agua Dulce. This can come next to you. I heard somebody on Darling Road over here had to sell their property because people next door sold theirs and someone came in with 100 sheep and they couldn't stand the smell or the flies. So without the CUP review, there's no way any of these animal facilities face any scrutiny, oversight, or accountability. And there's really no way the county or animal control know the issues like I've just outlined everything because I live there. If they don't do a review, they don't know all these issues that I brought up. It's ironic that a film shoot at that property, we used to have film shoots, required more conditions, permits, insurance, restrictions, and working with neighbors in a permanent facility like this one, which has a lot more negative impacts. I hope the county will make the owners apply for a CUP to address the negative impacts to neighbors and the environment and come up with restrictions and conditions. Or at the very least, limit the dogs to 10, not allow the sanctuary or other dog facilities to be open to the public, and put conditions and restrictions on the dog training classes. We can't afford our property values to dip and our quiet enjoyment of our properties to be ruined.
Members, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Sandy Jackson, and I'm a 6-year resident of Sierra Colony Ranch, and I live on Cap Rock Road. Our property backs up to Yucca Hills Road, and we have a view of the property of tonight's topic. I don't usually get involved in civic issues, but I felt I had to this time. I love my community and our quiet rural way of life, which drew us to Agua Dulce. I'm obviously not a public speaker, so if you don't mind, I'll read most of what I have here. Keep my train of thought. I'll try not to repeat what Justine just said, but I know a lot of what she said is in my notes, but I'll move along for you. I too am here to represent my friends and neighbors who, like myself, oppose the proposed use of the property listed as 34128 Agua Dulce Canyon Road. We have a petition that I've circulated during my limited spare time to my neighbors, which presently represents over 38 of the homeowners of Sierra Colony Ranch. I became interested after seeing much activity and increased traffic on the road behind my home as to what was going on. Then I saw an article in the Country Journal regarding a letter written about the property that was read at the July Town Council meeting. Excuse me. I followed up by contacting the Country Journal editor, received a copy of the letter from the Town Council written by Ms. Jennifer Gray. She has stated she wanted to dispel rumors and not run a disruptive business, and she focused on the impact on White Fox Lane, totally ignored the impact on the Caprock Road and Yucca Hills Road areas. After researching both Jennifer Gray and Sunny Day Acres for business, I wrote a letter to my neighbors informing them of what the activity was all about, for which I was accused of hurting their character, which was not my intent, but rather to tell the truth about issues that had discrepancies about them. The situation is as follows. The property, 18.55 acres, was recently purchased by Shane Scanlon, who is a resident of Agua Dulce but does not have any plans to reside at the new address. Instead, the plan is to develop the property with Jennifer Gray, she's been referred to as wife, fiance, girlfriend, both by herself and him. I don't know which she is. Jennifer has several businesses and, in her words, hopes to make this place the best doggy land zoo camp ever. That frightens me as a neighbor. The first business is a boarding facility. This has been advertised on her site using an address on White Fox Lane, hence the concern of the neighbors on White Fox. However, we've been informed they have advertised and run an unlicensed boarding facility at their present address on Escondido Canyon for some time. Boarding at this location on Yucca Hills would require people to use the access road also. Second is a dog rescue, which I understand, as of 2 weeks ago, still does not have a legal 501c rescue license. Possible dog adoptee families will also need to access this property. And the sanctuary for farm animals and dogs is the third one. We really already have General Barn, and we know how crazy it is on the weekends on Sierra Highway and the impact from the visitors and traffic, excuse me. The fourth is the dog training lessons given by Jennifer and her staff, and we have no idea what screening would be conducted upon the staff who will be assisting her at this site and possibly living on site as well. The last class schedule that was posted listed 11 classes on Sunday that are 5-week-long sessions. Some classes having up to 15 dogs and their owners in each class. Without even maxing out the classes, this is an additional 100+ cars on the road each week, just for classes. She has stated she will have open classes for local dog owners, but is quoted in a news segment interview that her attendees come from other cities and states to participate, and this will also add to the traffic on the road as well. In addition, she has stated she will be holding fundraising events as well on this property and expects an additional 50 cars on the road at those times. That will additionally impact the road. She's told the concerned neighbors she'll have her staff tell visitors to slow down on the road. That's not much comfort to me. The property is not currently accessible off the Agua Dulce Canyon Road or even White Fox Lane, but only by Caprock Road, which is the only ingress and egress for the residents of Sierra Colony Ranch, where a development of 60 homes, and Yucca Hills Road, through 15 properties, of which ours is one of them. The county does not maintain this road, and we homeowners pay the taxes on this road, and we have full liability for any use through our properties. If they're allowed to run their businesses, we won't know who's using our access. We've granted access to homeowners who actually live in their properties, but we are looking at huge liabilities. And then there's, and especially when there's free reign with volunteers, class attendees, possible dog adoptees, boarders, and even those who just want to pet the animals when they're allowed to use our road, or that road. This is not a simple case of having new owners sign a waiver to use the road. They don't even know who all will be on it. We're tax-paying homeowners that are being set up for disaster if and when something happens on this road. The liability comes back totally to the homeowner, and that is not right. Our homes are our biggest lifetime investment. Please consider how much this added traffic would clog up these roads during an emergency evacuation and seriously affect the safety of the residents. We too love animals and appreciate anyone involved in rescue and rehab of dogs, but this is not the place for it. We're in a very unique situation with not only the road access issues, but the location of these proposed businesses. Part of our property is also a flood control channel easement on the Santa Fe River. It runs through and floods their property. During the rain in August, they stayed in, quote, flash floods and mudslides, and their chickens were under 6 inches of water. We know this to be true, as we have seen it through the years. This doesn't sound like a safe place for this type of operation. There's also a question as to the probability of the amount of fill dirt that has been added to the property, for which there doesn't appear to have been any grading permits applied for or granted. I'm sure you're aware we've all had a lot of issues in the Agua Dulce and Acton area in the recent months with truckloads of dirt being dumped. We're not exactly sure where the loads are originating from other than from the LA area or what is in them. The dirt on this property gets washed into the stream bed and into the aquifer. As you're well aware, we have well water in Agua Dulce. We do not have city water. There are also the question of the chemicals that would be used to clean the proposed kennels and what they will add to the stream bed and the aquifer on a regular basis. They have been doing extensive remodeling on an existing home originally built in the 40s on the property as well. Again, there does not appear that all the required permits have been applied for the work that has already been completed. It was recently brought to our attention, and I think I kind of repeated myself here, that they've been running an unlicensed boarding facility at their home on Escondido Road for quite a while. Over a recent holiday weekend, a service dog left in their care passed away from heat exhaustion. This brings much concern with boarding and care of animals, especially when they, Scanlon Gray, won't even be watching over them or living on site. We homeowners will be inundated with constant noise, smells, dust from the increased traffic and activity created by Scanlon Gray and Sunny Day Acres, and they will be absentee owners. This will affect our safety, the quality of our life, which is why we moved to Agua Dulce to enjoy this type of lifestyle, and most importantly, the value of our property, which is again our biggest lifetime investment. We, the residents of Sierra Calling Ranch, are requesting that Agua Dulce Town Council be proactive in seeing that Shane Scanlon, Jennifer Gray, and Sunny Day Acres be required to have a CUP, which is conditional use permits for this property, to limit the amount and types of businesses conducted at this property. We would prefer that they be not allowed to run multiple businesses, hold fundraising events, board untold number of animals, have dog training classes, and affect our quality of life and damage the community aquifer. In previous attempts by the County of Los Angeles to accept the responsibility for the Upper Hills have failed. Therefore, we homeowners have been left with the total responsibility and liability, and we will have to consider our options as to the use of the Upper Hills Road. What options can a town council do to protect us in our residential community in this matter? Just a question for you.
Good question.
Thank you very much for your time and considerations. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And the Agua Dulce community for years. I'd just like to remind everyone that Larry and I here are representing the ordinance study session. The reason we're here is we have floated previous versions of an ordinance on animal facilities. And we have the capability and the ability to change the code upon direction from the board. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about the enforcement case in question. Larry will detail that, but I'd like to remind everyone, we're not the enforcement officer for this case. That's a mirror. Everyone's pretty familiar with the mirror in this community. And then I'd also like to just remind everyone that zoning is land use, and we don't necessarily deal with the animal care situation. Animal Care is here to talk about their licensing and how they go about in terms of establishing those facilities. So I'd just like to keep that in mind. Larry will detail some of the case as well as some of the issues and some of our options going forward. And then we'll take your questions and bullets if necessary, okay?
Great, thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Larry Jaramillo. Again, I work at the Ordinance Study Section. Thank you for having us here tonight. As Bruce said, I wanted to provide you with a brief overview of this particular property, kind of provide you some information, and then also go a little bit into the regulations of what we currently regulate. So first off, the property in question, 34128 Agua Dulce Canyon Road. On July 6, zoning enforcement did inspect the site and they did find violations of the property. 2 citations were issued. First was for an unpermitted dog kennel. The second issue was for a water well without a permit, so they did cite the property owner. About a week or two later, on July 19th, the property owner did submit an application to the Department of Regional Planning. This was a site plan review for a dog kennel. So the field office staff member reviewed the dog kennel based on the zoning regulations, what the zone allows for. And I'll go a little bit more into detail as to what we look at when we review a plan. The plan was reviewed on July 31st of this year, and it was approved for specifically just a dog kennel. To provide some additional background information, we did touch base with zoning enforcement. We had some additional information. Based on the approval, it was specifically prohibiting dog breeding, and it also did not permit a museum, a zoo, or any kind of commercial type operations such as tours or other types of operations. If the operator is doing anything other than a dog kennel, then they're basically violating what they were approved for. So the inspector was notified of the approval back from July 31st, and they are going to be doing a re-inspection to see if the site is operating under the regional planning approval part of it. So
what happened with the well?
the well, that's also going to be a follow-up question that the inspector will be taking a look at to see if that well was addressed, if they did get any kind of necessary permits for it, so they'll follow up with that.
How many dogs are approved for this kennel?
According to the inspector, it was approved for 10 kennel structures, 6 feet apart, and that was the extent of what was on the computer system as to the description of what the
So 10 dogs?
10 kennels, yes.
I'd just like to say, we
better clarify that. I think you should clarify.
I think it's two different things.
Yeah, we don't state how many dogs are allowed on our site plan. That's a licensing issue. And that's where I need folks to remember land use, animal licensing, very different things. They are related, but we have different purviews here.
Yeah. So we'll continue with land use, and then numbers of dogs is going to be animal control, and then they'll speak. So just give us time, and we'll cover.
Thank you.
So in terms of the existing requirements of what the land use allows in Title 22, so Title 22 allows dog kennels in A2 and M1 zones as a permitted use. This in the A2 zone it was allowed since 1938. That requirement hasn't changed since that time.
A2 hasn't changed?
No, I'm sorry. The A2 as far as the requirement, whether the sites were rezoned, that's a different question.
Okay. The zoning of that property hasn't changed.
The zoning requirement, is an A2 zone.
Dog kennels in the A2 zone have been allowed since 1938. That's what we're trying to say. Now that zoning of that property, it may very well have changed recently.
But wasn't A2 zoning for kennels just changed last year?
No, that's where it's a little confusing, because we came here to try to get that ordinance moving.
Right.
And it never got any traction. It's never been approved by the board.
And that was the number of dogs per acre, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we were trying to get our ordinance in line with licensing's segments, like their standards and their licensing.
Oh, okay.
And that never got any traction, so it was never changed. So what Larry is correct in that kennels in the A2 zone have been a permitted use since, or
But it was-
by right use since 1930.
Dog breeding was the change.
Well, the problem,
And
here,
I know it's
I'll
terminology.
jump to animal facility, but the trouble is licensing changed to the term animal facility.
Which
And
covers,
the zoning code used to be dog breeding, dog kennels, or it still is, in fact. And the challenge with that ordinance we were trying to push forward was we were coming up with the term animal facilities and trying to get in line with Title 10 animals. And it just never got any traction because obviously there's a lot of concerns in the community about this use in general. So the zoning ordinance has not changed. The animal care ordinance has changed and modernized in terms of their licensing. And that's where the disconnect came between our codes. And that's all we were trying to do. You'll recall, just really quick, I'm sorry, Larry. You'll recall when the Antelope Valley Plan was being presented, okay, that's when we discovered this problem, that the zoning ordinance was never updated to reflect the new licensing terms and segments that Title 10 was updated. And so that's where, after the Antelope Valley Plan came through, everyone remembers Mitch Glazer complaining. Mitch asked me in ordinance, hey Bruce, could you fix this little thing in the code? And I was like, oh, I could do that little thing for you. And boy, did I step off the cliff. But anyways, that ordinance has not made any traction. And Larry is correct in terms of this, the A2 zone really hasn't changed in terms of dog kennels.
Does kennels just mean you can have dogs, a certain amount of dogs? It doesn't mean you can have more.
and I think that's going to be answered with animal control.
Okay.
So in terms of the animal facility ordinance, the one that we presented last year, that one was basically, as Bruce was mentioning, just to realign the Title 22 terminology with animal care and controls. Because in Title 22, we had the term dog kennels, but then in Title 10, the animal code, they used animal facility. So that the main purpose was to realign those terms. When we initially did the outreach, we were proposing to put a cap, which was basically a maximum number of animals that would be allowed. It wasn't to say how many animals would be permitted, but just to say that they wouldn't exceed that number. But then we did receive some concerns from the community by seeing the number on there. So what we did was we reverted back to just a terminology change only. In terms of the land uses will remain the same. And that's what was agreed by the Regional Planning Commission.
And I think the only big issue we had at the time was the lumping of breeding facilities into an animal facility. Because we wanted to keep that separate. We didn't want breeders included on A2 property. And that was where we fought as much as we could.
But I have a breeder on my road.
I agree, and that was part of the issue, is that animal control had approved a number of breeders on A2 property. And at regional planning, that was an issue that came up, and because it came up, the regional planner said, it must be okay. Not the fact that it probably shouldn't have ever been approved, but it's there and it's existing, so it must be okay. And that was a hard argument to swallow, because it was issued by the state, and we've got to deal with consequences. But I think that gives a history of where we were on trying to work with regional planning on getting your land use stuff taken care of.
Licensing no longer gives out an animal breeder's license or an animal dog kennel license. I'm sorry, a dog breeder or a dog kennel license. Now it's on all animal facilities.
Right.
But the code, our zoning code, is so old and archaic. 1932, A2 zone hasn't been updated, that it still lists breeders and kennels. And that's where the disconnect is with the county code. Title 10, animals, Title 22, have different terms for what used to be the same thing.
So at this point, we can still prohibit breeders on A2 based on code.
I think that's animal, well, at this point, yes.
Yeah, yes, at this point, yes, because the first step that has to be done is to come to planning. And planning needs to say, is the land use compatible with the zoning? Is it a permitted use? And right now, breeders are the only thing that is not allowed.
Under
Not
Title,
A2.
under Title 22.
Under Title 22, not Title 10,
Right.
Title 22.
And Mary, just quickly, you said on the permit that where they applied for the 10 kennels, it said the zoning was A1, 2 for that property on Yucca Hill. But on the regional planning map, it says it's A2. What zoning is that property?
That particular property is zone 8-2. I did double check with our zoning maps, it was zoned correctly, and that's why it is.
I think the planning was just a typo.
Okay.
Exactly, it's either A1 or A2. There's no A1.
Yeah, well, one paper says one thing, the other says another.
It's A2.
Okay,
In terms of the actual review of the number of dogs, again, we want to mainly focus on the land use part of it. As far as whether the number of dogs allowed on the site is okay or not, that's actually reviewed by Animal Care and Control. They have regulations that will determine whether the facility provides enough to accommodate the number of dogs that are there. So I don't want to go into too much detail. I would like to let Animal Care and Control kind of respond to that. And then also, just kind of want to briefly touch that they recently, last year, I believe, updated or streamlined the process in order to provide an avenue for complaints to be filed. So, Carlos, if you'd like to kind of go into a little bit
I'd just like to add one thing before Carlos gets up here. So where we go from here with the zoning code, okay? We still would like to update our zoning code to be consistent with animal care, okay? That's really important to us, so we really want to update that term, animal facilities, because it matches their licensing criteria. Now, the options for an animal facilities in the zoning code are multiple. And, you know, we can continue as a by right use in the A2 zone. We can put it in the CUP slot like Justine had requested in her presentation. Okay, that's entire. In both presentations, we can require a CUP for an animal facilities. Okay, but that's not my decision. I'm a middle manager at the Department of Regional Planning. I don't make policy, I implement it. Okay, so if that's the case. We have an animal facilities ordinance drafted. We've had it for 1.5 years now, but we've been here trying to float that. I think it's really up to the community to decide and provide that input to the representatives and so forth to make that push one way or the other. Right now, we've got a lot on our boilerplate. We can't pick this up right this minute, but we'll be able to pick it up, and as soon as somebody tells us what to do, we'll do it. But right now, the ordinance we have drafted isn't going anywhere, as is, because of all the concern about this use. And we also haven't gotten feedback in terms of create a new draft that requires a CUP, and this is something that at least 3 supervisors will support. So that's where I am, okay? I'm kind of in the middle here. Somebody tells me what to do, I do it. But until that happens, I just kind of sit here. And I would like to say the other thing real quick is, until a decision is made that way, the zoning map and the zoning code is going to remain the same, which means that any additional application can come in, and the Department of Regional Planning is going to process them exactly the same until something changes in that code. Okay? So I just want to put that out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Carlos Pinea, here with the Department of Animal Control. I have some members of the department right here with us in case there are some questions that can be a little challenge for me to answer, but I will try to provide as much information as possible. We're also in kind of the same situation as our friends from regional planning that they have to, follow what is written on their title. And we are the second phase. When people reach out to us, they're very interested in developing an animal facility, whether they know, well, you have to meet a specific criteria, and you have to start with regional planning, see if you are zoned. But we are in a quite difficult situation because we cannot, tell them, we don't have the authority to tell them to do that. And once they meet the criteria, meet all the requirements, build whatever they need to build to be able to house the animals, we're going to send our officers to do inspections. And even if they say, we are capable of holding 100 animals, we're not going to start from there, because we need to find out if they're capable of handling these number of animals. Sometimes, we even started with 20 or 10. All depends. Definitely this facility that you're requesting is not in our hands yet, because they are still going through the process, so we don't know what is there. And at this time, we have no authority to go into this place and inspect it. We really can't. Once they are approved, we're definitely going to make sure there are some things that they need to, that we recommend and that we actually even enforce to see how they're keeping the animals. We given some instructions on the regulations that we have. And Larry mentioned something important, that the department has been doing some changes to the Title 10, extensive changes. And some of the things that we are including now is that we're also going to look at the excessive noise. It's going to be part of the requirements. And we're going to inform the business owners that all animals must be maintained in a manner to eliminate excessive noise in nighttime. We also are waiting for final approval of changes to our Title 10, and the final reading is going to be on October 10th. And then after that, we need to wait for a period of time for changes to come into effect. We also are implementing the administrative side process just to eliminate the challenges that people had before. In order for them to bring cases of excessive barking complaint, they needed to have signatures, petitions, and gather everybody, and I believe that definitely in this case is not practical for you, because you may live next to the business and your next door neighbor is, 5 miles saturated. But as far away, it's not getting the same impact that you have with excessive noise. And on our new process that we are presenting to the Board of Supervisors, the Fire Department is presenting, is suggesting where the victim is going to be able to submit to us on a penalty of perjury, an affidavit stating how they've been affected by this excessive noise. Then the department is going to issue a notice of violation, informing the owner of the animal that is causing excessive noise that we have received a complaint that they have a certain period of time to correct it. If it's not corrected, then the administrative site is issued with fines ranging from $100 to $500 at the beginning of this. We are hoping that, unfortunately, once we start getting charged for the stuff, when we start paying attention and making the necessary changes, because it's affecting our pocket. And definitely there are some other consequences on this that eventually impact this business to continue. The reason why is because also the director has the discretion to see if there have been complaints against this business. If there have been excessive complaints, definitely we can bring a case in front of the Business License Commission and address them in different manners and impact their business. So, again, just as, friends for regional planning, we are in the situation that they are allowed to have this business, and in our case, it's going to be to regulate the conditions, how the animals are kept, our animal welfare, make sure that they are taken care of. They are fed, keeping in really good, healthy conditions. We get into this business because we're animal lovers, and it's something that we're going to continue, because we know that we are the voice for these creatures that if no one is looking after them, it's a horrible case that we have investigated. So, but I don't know if you have any specific question in regards to our process.
I have one question, and I see your concern primarily is for the animals. okay, which is great. That's why it's called that division. Bruce's division is land use and limits, okay? But they don't know what the people are gonna be doing with the animals until they come to see you. But you're not gonna do a study, a road use study, or evacuation study, or any of these impact studies that normally happens in regional planning or in zoning. So I think that's where the disconnect is, and I don't know how, you know.
With the discretionary use. When it's discretionary, meaning a CUP,
Right.
then we would get involved in asking those questions about evacuation and.
I think that's gotta be, and that's what we wrote a letter a year ago, and specifically asked for that. And I don't know what, you know, the community is saying, well, what's the town council gonna do? We've written letters, we've been to meetings, we've entertained discussions here. But it seems to me like the only true answer is gonna be a conditional use permit, something where the neighbors can appear and speak their concerns before it gets, because I can say you're gonna handle complaints, but that's after the fact. And so, yes, they're gonna pay $500, and then you're gonna pretty soon it's, well, you're doing a pretty good job, so we're gonna let you go another month, and then another dog barks. The problem we here have here in Agua Dulce is a little unique, is we're full of canyons. You can have one dog 2 miles away.
That's right, that's right.
And it's amphitheater coming up through the canyon. So I don't know, you know, fortunately, I think, and Sierra County Group can speak more for this, but, you know, the concerns as far as the barking dogs, I mean, you have a kennel, how many dogs are in the kennel that's close to you there?
I haven't counted them. I would say right now they probably have maybe 10. We went to animal control twice because of the barking and noise to the court, animal control court. And they got, you know, fined and were told they had to do something. And it has improved since then. So I don't think they have, they had at one time up to 20 dogs.
And to be honest, when we had this discussion on animal facilities last year, there was really only one facility in town that there was an issue with, and it was the German Shepherds on Becky Hills. So we feel your pain, your existing pain.
Well, right now it kind of calmed down, but now we have a new business come on, which is, you know what it's going to do? It's going to set off all the dogs.
This dog starts. It's the.
And it's adjacent to the Shepherd breeder. This property is adjacent.
I want to hear that. Yes.
Well, just to kind of keep in mind, based on the information we provided today, one thing to consider is that right now the new streamlined improvements and animal care and control are fairly new. So what I'd like to suggest is maybe if you could just give them an opportunity to try this new system to see if it would work. What we're trying to do is we're basically looking at
No. We don't want to be the guinea pig. That's not going to solve it.
It doesn't deal with the traffic. Animal control does not deal with the traffic or evacuation.
I live next door to them and they do the classes. It's not that long.
Excuse me, Larry's got the floor.
You're on a public road.
Excuse me, Larry's got the floor.
It's not as private.
So basically, say we do a conditional use permit. That's going to be, say, over probably $10,000 application process. Could take about a year or two, but we still don't know whether or not that operator is going to be a good operator or a bad operator. It doesn't really solve the issue.
But there are conditions, enforceable conditions, that can be put into a conditional use permit that allow the neighborhood input to take care of the traffic issues, or to address the traffic issues, to address the evaluation issues. With animal control, and I'll tell you, I love animal control, and I've been working with Jaime. Jaime will let us know when they're going to be out to do the inspections to make sure you got your dog licenses. He gives me a month ahead of time. I put it on Facebook so you all know to get your licenses renewed. They're very proactive in helping us.
Yeah.
And I have faith to a point as to, especially a brand new facility, that there will be some restrictions. It's not going to be whatever you want, you can get. I'm really hoping that, especially after hearing this, to understand some of the neighbor conditions, that possibly not having boarding, not having classes, not having the farm sanctuary to start with. Prove that you can be a good neighbor with some dog, maybe the dog rescue or dog training classes. That's what I'm hoping that we can start with. And I don't know, she's got an existing facility now. If it's permitted, great. If it's not permitted, I got a problem with it. You know, that sort of stuff, because that indicates that I'm not playing by the rules beforehand. So
I think what Mary's talking about is like a probation period, where
right.
they're actually proving themselves, because let's face it, in any ordinance or any law, there's always a loophole. Okay, there's some way we can do this, and when they make sure when they show up, we put the big dogs over there, or these are just puppies, they're just going to be here for a week. That's what we're concerned about, is that all of a sudden it's gotten out of hand or out of control, and it sounds like, at least with these ads that this person's been running, they're pretty serious about having this thing like a little Noah's Ark or something. So, you know.
Mr. President, what I found troubling, and I'm just speaking for myself, is that if you're going to talk about Larry by Agua Dulce, animals will probably be at the top. The truck issue has been horrible. It's just been all over our town. I have personally lost 2 windshields with it. Okay, as far as, and then the wells would be right above it, right at the top. So wells, trucks, and animals, right? And there's allegations by Justine and Sandy and by yourself regarding the well. I, for one, find all that very troubling in those areas to start out with, to start out that way. I can't even fathom drilling a well and doing all that. I had to pay for 2 different well permits. I can't even fathom doing that. And coming from you, I'm going to take your word on that. That really is troublesome to me, personally.
Can I add one point, please? My name is Shane Scanlon. We've been listening the whole time. We haven't had any trucks of dirt or anything else brought in. There has been some people in the local area, which I don't know where they're going. But we haven't done any.
You have a pile of mountain dirt on your
tons of
property
dirt.
with a
Excuse me,
earth
Tom.
moving machine.
Okay,
Everything
there's
is
a mulch
existing.
pile. We have not brought in any dirt on the property. We've worked with the county with all our permits and everything else. It's difficult to hear, that's all.
How about
There
the
have been
well?
trucks going past the property, we have seen that,
How
but we
about
have
the
not
well?
brought any dirt in.
That's not true.
I haven't seen any citations for the well. The well was existing when we came there and it's
Well,
running.
then you graded a whole heck of a lot of dirt.
Okay, we gotta stop
down.
now.
Hold a second. Larry's got the. Okay. So, that's pretty, yes.
Okay, Officer Aphrodite is going to explain to tell you how the first inspection, what's the process is for inspecting new facilities. He's a reading officer.
So I'm with the business license, and I'm Officer Aphrodite with a business license, and basically I'm one of the officers that goes out and inspects new facilities. So the one in question here has 10 kennels. That doesn't guarantee they may even have 10 dogs on that facility. I cannot say exactly what they may have at this time because I haven't been out to the property, but I determine the amount of dogs by the size of the kennel, what kind of business they're going to run. If it's going to be a rescue only, then they could be various sizes of dogs. So I would have to, again, determine by the size of the kennel whether they could hold 1 dog in there, along with a dog house, along with maybe a resting board or blankets or whatever, water, food, things like that. It is, if it's overhead shelter, and then I check the perimeter, making sure the perimeter is okay. And then I do overlook the property with the neighbors. And if there are maybe a question, well, I like 20, and I look at maybe the neighbors not too far away. Well, you know, right now, let's go ahead and just start off with this amount, and we're going to go ahead and maybe keep a tab on you for about a year. And, well, you know, if there's no complaints, no barking complaints coming in, then it's fine. We may be able to give you that number that you want. But for now, we're going to just start at a low number, and that's it. Now, if there is complaints, and they're constantly coming in, then I would tell them, we may have to reduce your animals. But we will work with them as far as maybe keeping the dogs quiet, do they have an indoor facility? Maybe there's just one barker. Maybe if it's barking at a certain time, keep that one indoors for a while. Feeding time, things like that. So we try to work with them, but then if we have to put our foot down and enforce the barking complaint or something like that, then we'll go ahead and do that. We do inspect the facility once a year. Before we go out and do the inspection, we check the history and see if there's any complaints, because sometimes they go directly to dispatch, and I don't personally may not get the complaints, but we usually check on the computer and see if there's anything pending or previous, and we will go out there and either educate them or let them know there was a previous complaint, and basically that's what we would do. When we do inspect the facility once a year, we check first the welfare of the animals. We check the food, the water, rabies vaccination. We check boarding records if needed. The perimeter again, overhead shelter. And how much staff is on the property, what they do with the waste, where they store the dog food. That's pretty much what we do. And whatever else we see, if it's a hazardous environment for the animal, things like that. So that's basically what I do now. It's sometimes a large scale kennel and sometimes small. So like I said, even if it was a large one and they have 50 kennel runs, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get those 50 dogs right then and there.
What about the multiple different uses, the boarding, the lessons, the
Dog rescue,
and the farm sanctuary? How do you determine limits on that?
Well, it's the same thing, it's the housing. It all has to do with the housing. So if they have 10 kennels, and that's it, and they want to board, they want to rescue, they want to, then, well, where are you going to keep your boarding animals? You have 10 kennels, so you're going to only be able to board 5 dogs there. If you're going to rescue, then these 5 are going to be for rescue. And that's it.
Okay,
I'm just saying, for instance, I haven't seen the kennels, but that's the way it would be.
Okay, but say dog training, where dogs are coming in and leave for the day, where it's transient.
The training facilities it varies because they have usually just a yard and they have obstacles that they may train. The only time we may require containment of the animal, usually when it's training, they're there with the owners of the animals, but usually if they're contained, it's maybe temporarily for feeding purposes or something like that. But usually if it's just training, they're usually in an open field training. They're not kennels there all day because they're there for training.
And herein lies some of the traffic issues that it's not really an animal control issue.
And where that comes in, okay, is the application and telling us what they're doing on site. So as Larry summarized, when we got the application for that site plan, it was approved for
10 kennels.
Yeah, 10 kennels.
But they're inside
What goes
kennel.
along with
Justine reports that they're doing abundant other things there, okay? That was never put on their site plan, okay? So that's why we're researching that now. The enforcement, zoning enforcement is going back there.
Now, is it approved for fundraising events? Is it approved for?
Dog boarding.
I mean, get that guy. You can have 100 cars down there.
The question I have is they have a current facility on Escondido Canyon Road, and it was brought up that they possibly don't have the correct permits. Do they have the correct permits for Escondido? They're animal control.
It's A1 zoning. It's not zoned for county.
They do boarding there too.
It's not an A2 property.
It's a training facility, we don't board, I don't have
It's
it.
boarding, it's not. I'm not sure they're on the site. She does work.
But what I would recommend is, and not only for this situation, but for all animal facilities, what we do is when we review the plans, we try to base it on what our codes allow, and then we do have inspectors that go out to properties to make sure that they're in compliance. But for whatever reason, if you see an operator that's out doing things dogs that are suspicious or they feel that are not in compliance with what should be allowed in the code, please report that both to our zoning enforcement office and to animal control so we can investigate. And we also ask that if you can make any kind of record or photographs or something to submit those. If you do have it, and submit those to us, that way we can see if the time of the inspection.
You didn't answer the question if the other place is or licensed.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
My question is Sunny Day Acres on Escondido Canyon Road, they had on their Facebook page, I have screenshots of it all. It showed that they were adopting, and there's an article in the interview they did, that thousands of dogs, since they've been there, they are like maybe 160 dogs this year so far that I can count on their website. Do they have a license? For
Yes
dog
or no,
or
yes or no.
501c? Yes or no? Then do they have a license?
I just see they're not on our property. I train the dogs for the rescue.
We're talking
And
about
so those,
boarding.
I know, but you're saying that 12 or 160 dogs.
That's not it.
That's
No cross conversation, that's not what this is about.
Is there a license for dog boarding?
Okay, we need to wrap this up. I think what we need to do at this point is if we can open up a dialogue between the concerned people, the people involved with the facility, and the county, so that they have a voice. You know, at this point, you can see the concern. Okay, so I don't think it's going to get solved here tonight, but I would like if you can exchange email addresses, phone numbers, whatever, so that we can continue this, so their voice can be heard. So it sounds to me like there is going to be quite a bit of scrutiny on this facility when it gets underway, and the owners are going to want to make sure the neighbors are happy. So it's something where everybody has to work together. Obviously, they bought the property, so they're entitled to do something with it. If the zoning says they can do a particular thing, then why shouldn't they have a right to do that thing, provided they don't cause problems in the community? I think that's our biggest concern. So I think at this point,
Mr. President, there's one card related to that I think she needed to talk about. That's why it might be good that the gentleman here that since she put the card in. I think we missed.
But isn't it also?
Yes, we have a property, she says she doesn't want it, the same as what I want it.
So, do you have just?
Sure.
I'll hear you, and then this will be the last one.
We need animal control and we need zoning here. She's currently right now running 48 acres.
I'm talking.
So,
She's got 3 minutes.
she currently runs Sunny Day Acres at her home facility, which is 9524 Escondido Canyon Boulevard. That zoning, as of speaking to Planner Nazar, the planning department, is at A1 zone property, so light agricultural. There is no ability to allow for dog training or for kennels at that facility, which she currently does have. There was a dog that was actually killed, a week ago, and I'm here to speak up for her behalf as well since she's out of state, but she does board. My dogs were sent there for boarding a year ago. I called animal control. Nothing has been done so far, but they were not only stuck, they weren't even given a kennel run. They were given 2 crates and an empty RV that sat on her residence. No heating, no bedding, no air conditioning, and an empty RV, a motorhome. So that's like leaving them in a vehicle. And that was done for over 45 days. So they don't have a current license. I did call animal control last year. There was no license. I have returned voicemails where they've gone out there several times. She's avoided them. And that's what we're not talking about. Everybody seems to be so focused on the new facility and what it will do to those neighbors. And we're concerned about a history of what kind of operator they are. Then let's talk about the history. There's an article from The Signal that goes back to 2003 that talks about dog training and dog boarding at Sunny Day Acres. There are business cards that she has circulated over the years that offer a 5th day of free boarding after you pay her for 4 days of boarding at her facility. She has been boarding there for years with no license. There's a history.
Okay, so we moved up in 2012. There was another Sunny Day Acres prior to us.
These are your business cards with your
I've been
phone
here
number, with
since
your
2012.
picture in the newspaper article.
You can't have that.
Yeah, 1 minute.
You can't.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
If everybody can get together and exchange numbers and whatnot, I appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate you giving us the information. We're gonna take a 5-minute break so that can take place, and then we'll reconvene and finish up this meeting. Okay.
Okay, all right. So, on the agenda under my name was marijuana regulations. So you all need to know that marijuana is still illegal in unincorporated LA County, and the state of California won't be putting their rules and regulations out there until after January 2018. So that's the situation today. Now, this report I gave you was from the listening sessions that they held around the county, and so that's basically their PowerPoint report, but it gives you some details about what's could happen, what's coming.
What do you think's going to happen?
No clue.
No clue.
Not on this one. So, in the county, who's responsible for implementing are the Board of Supervisors. The policies related to cannabis and coordinating with county departments and other agencies on cannabis issues, including public health and law enforcement agencies. They have a website listed on the second page in there. I'd suggest you get on that and check it out if you really are after some detailed information. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is local government cannot ban personal cultivation, but can ban commercial non-medical cannabis activity within their jurisdictions. Cities and counties are creating an array of policies and procedures to guide the cultivation, sale, distribution, and use of non-medical cannabis. Key words there, cities and counties are creating their policies. Nothing is done yet. Rules are being discussed and will apply to unincorporated LA County areas. Approximately 1 million residents live in unincorporated areas, which would be the 4th largest city by population in California. So in June of this year, the Board of Supervisors banned all cultivation, manufacturing, processing, testing, transportation, and retail sale of medical and non-medical, also known as recreational cannabis, also known as marijuana, in unincorporated areas until a comprehensive regulatory framework can be put in place.
Now, cultivation, does that mean one plant or over 6?
Over 6.
Over 6. So you're allowed by the state mandate 6, and that's 6.
But if you live in unincorporated LA County,
is that right?
So no 6.
No 6. Not in unincorporated.
Not in 1.
But if you live in the city of LA or in the city of Santa Clarita, of course, I don't know about the seaside Clarita may have banned also. But go through this document, get on the website, familiarize yourself. As time marches on, we're almost at the end of the year. It's almost 2018. I'll bring back more information, and I can also bring somebody from that section in the CEO's office to talk to you if you want to have a real conversation about it. But it's in process.
Okay. And it's a new position, isn't it? It's all new.
It's all new. It's all new.
Okay.
Somebody even asked me, can I drive and smoke marijuana?
Yeah.
The answer to that would be no. Why do you ask this question?
Can I be high and drive?
No, you, of all people, cannot.
One issue.
Why am I
One
getting
issue.
Yes.
One issue. It's got the initials, of course. CCAP.
Qu'est-ce que c'est CCAP?
CCAP 2020.
I don't know what that is.
Community Climate Action Plan 2020. It's real scary. We just got notice of it. I don't know how long it's been out, but anyway.
Let me see your notice. Do you have it there? We just
Well, actually, we got notice
From the ARTC.
ARTC.
so then you don't have the letter or anything. This
This is
that.
what.
Okay, I don't need to see that. I thought it was.
But yeah, it basically just.
No, we didn't get noticed.
You know, we didn't get notified, but they got noticed, and it's, I guess it's already gone through the Board of Supervisors, it sounds like, as of 2018.
Of what?
Board of
this month.
But October 2015, they actually started putting all this stuff together.
Oh, so it's probably regional planning, probably.
And believe it or not, in their actual report, there's only 3 people that commented. One was in favor, one was opposed, and one didn't really have an opinion. And this thing we're talking about, you know, you can't have blacktop anymore, you have to have a sign in your parking lot that tells everybody they can only idle for 3 minutes if they're making a delivery, otherwise they have to turn the engine on. The roof cannot be metal anymore, it can't be a corrugated roof, it's got to have this heat absorbing material. It just goes on and on and on and on. So,
And where did you get that information?
I
Got
got-
online?
no, I got this sent to me from the Association of Rural Town Councils.
Oh, so they sent that information too?
It's planning.lacounty.gov, CC8PIO 2016. CC8PIO 2016.
Climate change, AP.
Yeah.
What's that stand for?
Climate change, no, Community Climate Action Plan is what it stands for. And it's ordinance to amend Title 22. And it's, you want the project number? I can just give you this, let me see. This is my cliff notes.
You know what I'll do is
I'll
forward
forward you the
the letter we got from the ADTC.
Oh, this is what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
But are these the same? No, they're different dates. They're different dates. This is September and May. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, I don't have any detailed information, but there's always this month.
Okay.
But there is the hearing this month.
Right, we're going to send a letter asking for an extension, not to approve it yet.
Did you notice if you want further information, who to contact?
Bruce Durbin.
Yes.
Is he still here?
I'll just
You want me to speak now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So, the CCAP.
Yes.
Let me talk about that really quick, okay? CCAP stands for Community Climate Action Plan, okay? The first thing I want people to know is to not get this ordinance confused with a motion that was just approved by the board on August 1st. That motion, which was written by Supervisor Kuehl, asked that public works and county departments study and research the issue of requiring mandatory cool roofs. Okay, cool roofs are non-reflective, they reflect heat away from the earth instead of absorbing it. Okay? That motion, approved on August 1st, it's in study. Public Works is leading that. They'll come back in 4 months or 6 months with a report and recommendations. So, and that's requiring it countywide. Okay? Let me switch back to CCAP. The Climate Community Action Plan was approved as part, it's a big giant policy document, and it's required by AB 32, which is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Law. Okay? That document is the county's plan, and it's multifaceted. Everything from our county fleet to our buildings to so many facets of how the county operates, as well as some of our policies that we want to put forth out on residential and commercial property. That policy document is part of the air quality element of the county's general plan. And we all know the county's general plan was just updated in 2015. So the Climate Community Action Plan is a document that's already been vetted and it's already been approved by the board. And it's policy. Okay? Well, you can make policy, but you have to implement it. Okay? And the first part of the Climate Community Action Plan asks us to deal with a few issues in the zoning code. Well, it asks us to deal with a lot of issues countywide. But specific to planning, the first part of the Community Action Plan asks us to make these changes to the zoning code in order to encourage. Okay? Now, there is nothing in this ordinance, and I'll say this again, the ordinance was heard by the Regional Planning Commission in May. I can't remember the specific date. They approved it unanimously. And now we have a public hearing scheduled in front of the board on September 26th, and they will consider it, okay? The CCAP ordinance is 4 pieces, and there's only one tiny part that's mandatory on property owners, and I'll explain. The first part, electric vehicles and electric vehicle service equipment, EVSE, okay? Right now the zoning code is silent on electric vehicles. And it's not so much that we are requiring an additional parking space for an EV, or we're saying the EV needs to be this and that. All it's saying is it's adding EV to the code, and it's saying how this equipment should be cited, okay? And really we defer to building and safety on this type of stuff. But all we're saying is EV equipment is an accessory use to whatever use is approved. Okay? So the problem right now is when it's not in the code, the planner goes, well, what is this? Is it like pool equipment, or is it like air conditioners, or you know what I mean? They don't know what it's like. And so they make one determination or one interpretation. Okay? The next applicant comes up and says for the very same thing, they might get a different planner, and unfortunately that planner may make a separate interpretation. You get these varying rules and it's inconsistent, okay? So this just adds to the code and says this is how you treat EV equipment. It's an accessory use. We also did a little switch on service stations to not limit service stations to gasoline and petroleum products. We say service stations can be charging stations as well. So that's one part, EVSE. Nowhere are we requiring anything with electric vehicles or equipment. We're not even requiring homes be pre-wired and all that kind of stuff, okay? Second part, let me talk about cool roofs and cool pavements, okay? Right now, the zoning code does not really regulate roofs. It's a structure, okay? We don't regulate it. We might regulate the look of it. Your CSV might have some architectural design stuff, okay? But for the most part, we don't. There is one little section of the code as it pertains to single-family houses that says we don't want sheet metal and prefab material. This was added to the code in the 1970s as a result of prefab and the way prefab looked like trailers back in the day.
Right.
Okay? People wanted to protect their single-family homes. They wanted to make sure roofs weren't looking like tin cans. Okay? So we put this in the code back in the 70s. This ordinance that's going forth, it tweaks that little part, which only pertains to single-family houses, and it basically says, we removed the part that basically says metal, because metal is actually a common building material now when it comes to roofing, okay? And what it basically says is, you know, we emphasize that we don't want glare, and we don't want, and that you can use cool roofing materials if you want, if the property owner wants to. Meaning, all we're doing is removing the barriers to cool roofs and alternative building or roofing material. I'd also like to keep in mind that cool roofs does not mean sheet metal, and it does not mean that, you know, you're going to be looking at a shiny thing. For the most part, if sheet metal is used, it's usually used on a flat roof behind a parapet wall. And cool roofing material can include red tile. Red tile is now composed of these composites that will reflect light and heat away.
And some metal roofs look pretty nice, actually.
Yeah, so essentially we're just removing the barriers to these new building materials that are available.
So you're not requiring it?
We're not requiring anything.
Okay.
Okay? 2 more parts to the code.
Allowing.
We're allowing it. We've removed the barriers, but nothing says, you know, now if a property owner comes in and says, I want to use this material, they should be able to if the ordinance passes, okay? Now, Sheila Kuehl's motion, and the board approved that, I mean to research it at least, that may very well require cool roofs, okay? But keep in mind, cool roofs have come a long way. They're almost as cheap, or if not the same price of standard conventional materials. And when we proposed our little tweak in our ordinance right now, California Roofers Association had no comment. No comment at all. They didn't really care. Same with the Building Industry Association. So we went to them, you know, and they don't really have any problem with us. There's 2 more parts to the code, and I'm blanking
What
right
about
now.
pavement?
But let's see, cool roofs, EV.
Pavement.
Pavement's the same thing. We don't really regulate pavement, but we say if a property owner or developer wants to put in a cool pavement thing, now our code will allow it. But really, that's up to building and safety. They're looking at the drainage, they're looking at all of that kind of stuff in terms of how something's designed.
I think the big question we have is, we understand that a lot of this encourages things, but what I think we're gonna know is what now is gonna be a requirement.
Oh, okay, and that's the fine point. There's one little piece that we do say is required. Loading zones, not on the street or curbside, but loading areas that are part of a warehouse dock or part of a distribution center, okay? We want to reduce truck idle. That's the big thing, reduction of greenhouse gas. We don't want people in loading areas to just run their engine. And even though there's clean California idling now, this is basically saying if you develop a commercial property with a loading area or a loading dock, you need to post a sign, no idling. That's it. We don't really think that's very onerous. So basically, it's to encourage idle reduction. And
So
keep
they're
in
not
mind,
into the enforcement or anything?
Police it or.
It's just the sign.
yeah, we don't even say a minute, because what we don't want is our inspectors to go out there and have to time for 5-minute idle and all that kind of stuff. So we're just saying, please don't idle. And all we will enforce is if the sign is there or not. We're not going to really enforce whether they are idling or not. That's an AQMD rule. And I think it's more than 3 or 5 minutes.
Bruce, what about vegetated open space?
Okay, and that's the last piece. There's 4 elements: EV, roofs and pavement, the sign and loading areas, and the 4th part is open space. The Climate Community Action Plan asks us to encourage open space and encourage the activation of open space that might be laying idle. Okay? And this part of the ordinance, right now, what you have to understand about high voltage utility lines, okay, everybody knows what they are. Everyone knows this corridor. For the most part, they just kind of mow the grass down and vegetation down to prevent a fire hazard, and they're left idle. In urban areas, they might be fenced off or not. And up here in Castaic, they're sort of semi-accessible. Sometimes they might be part of an HOA or something like that. The county doesn't have a specific zoning designation for those corridors. The zoning follows whatever is next to it. So in urban areas like South LA, where those are, and houses are going right down each side, that's R1, okay? And that corridor is zoned R1, just like those houses. Because whatever's happening in that corridor, we want it to be compatible with those neighboring houses. But out here in Castaic, that might be zone A, okay? Or it could even be zoned to commercial, okay? And what that does is it creates different rules, because the use is by the zoning, right? Okay? And so if somebody says, oh, I want to put in a riding trail or a hiking trail or a park under this corridor, okay? We have to look at the zoning. And in an R zone, it might be very difficult to put in something like that. In an A zone, it might be a little easier. In a C zone, it'd be very easy. Meaning different rules apply to different corridors. And it's all because of the zoning next to it. So all this basically says is we've created rules for secondary uses under the utility wire. We are not saying that this has to happen. Keep in mind, who owns the utility wires? Utility, okay? So they're the ones who control what goes on under there. And whoever is the developer, whether it's county parks that wants to produce a hiking or riding trail, or it's, let's say, a commercial nursery that just wants to grow stock, okay? Right now there's different rules sometimes we require that nursery to get a CUP. Okay? This will change the rules to allow certain recreational and very passive commercial uses, like nurseries, to occur in there and have very, very low-level sort of approval process. Okay? The idea is we have these assets in the county, especially South LA, where it's very park poor, and it might be great for an urban trail. But there's all these hindrances because of the zoning code, and that corridor alone may have 3 zoning designations. Okay? So this basically says, let's ease the rules for these particular corridors, make it a little easier, and set the rules for what can go in there and under that.
Like creating a separate zoning for all those areas for the secondary use. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, we're not rezoning them, because that would require an EIR, and I can't go there right now.
Right.
But what we are saying is, for these recreational uses, or these passive commercial uses like nurseries, it's not, they're never going to see a retail nursery under that. Okay?
How about RV parking?
Parking could be, parking's already allowed and it's easy, but we're really trying to get away from that, because what we want to do is activate these spaces. They're assets, and if we can, create a hiking trail or a riding trail or whatever it is, a park. If you look at the city of Southgate, if you look on the map, just look at Google Maps, and look at the city of Southgate, and then you cross the river, and you come into unincorporated Florence Fire Zone, it's tragic. It's tragic because Southgate has this beautiful corridor with bathrooms and parks and playgrounds and all of this stuff, and just across the river, nothing. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to activate these areas. I don't think you have to worry much out here in Passaic and stuff. The mountainous nature of where these corridors are going. I don't think you'll see the type of uses. You might see some boat parking down in Passaic, maybe, but that's about it. And all I'd like to say with CCAP is there's been a little confusion because of this motion to accule. I got a letter from the Allen Baker's Town Council. They were a little upset that I didn't go out to the community and explain this. But keep in mind, my strategy was a little bit different on outreach on that. Number one, I'm not requiring any homeowners to do anything. Okay? We're really just breaking down the procedure, or opening up the possibility. Number two, this is already policy of the county, so I'm just kind of doing a follow-up implementation of something the board already vetted and approved. And number three, I tried to work specifically with industry or folks that may be affected. Okay, so that's why I went out to the Building Industry Association and some other industry groups to get their feedback. I just felt like this ordinance is not doing very much, and it's really hard to explain. So to go out to every CSD would be very difficult for me. And keep in mind, at that time, I was working on a cannabis ban ordinance and a bunch of other things of the board's priority. And I've only got 4 people in my section, so including me. So I just, I chose a different strategy there. It wasn't to try to pull the wool over Admiral Bakers or ADTC or anybody. It was just trying to economies of scale kind of thing.
So really no restriction, no change, the only thing is the idle sign.
Yeah, the mandatory thing is requiring a sign and unloading area. Beyond that, no new mandatory requirements on property.
Okay, I'm glad you stuck around, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. You can never get out of here. Okay, so, I move to rescind my motion to send it to
Settle down.
I second that.
We see, the whole thing is, we didn't know, and we get something thrown on us even before we can send out the agenda, or after we've already sent the agenda. So anyway, I'm sure glad Bruce was here. Thank you, Rosalind. Excellent choice of participant.
Yes, you know what, it was gonna be an ugly meeting no matter what. And I think having these guys here,
perfect.
it
Yeah, it's kind of like, let's
Lay
break
it
it
out.
out, you know, don't start pointing the finger.
But I still think we need to write another letter, like we did last year on CUPs need to be required in the facility.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Instead of
it's not fair
that letter.
to bring it in and then retroactively try and repair the damage that's already done.
Right.
You know,
Right.
let them have their say, let them, you know, it's done right.
And I think we should bring this up at the ADTC meeting to let them, because if they can get behind it and say the same thing, that would be, although I know out there in Little Rock,
Some of them want that.
I know.
You know?
Well, there's room out there, go.
Go, yeah, go, yeah.
Yes.
That's a low tax.
Okay.
And how about, let's see, we are, regional planning plans filed, we have one ground mount solar that approved. And then of course the kennel, 10 dog kennels. I don't really know what 10 dog kennels, but that means 10 dogs.
See, that's
kinda
my
confusing.
Therein becomes an issue, yes.
Is that-
I think it holds more than 10 dogs.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but I have a problem with that.
And you know what, there has to be.
The neighbors have a problem.
Well, the whole thing is called a kennel.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and yet they're gonna have 10 dog kennels.
And no one's
It
deciding.
should be a run.
Dog runs.
It's called a run.
Yeah,
But
they
what-
better have a roof on
The
it.
area is a kennel, and there's how many runs in the kennel. If there's 10 kennels,
So we-
how many runs are in each kennel?
Let's get our verbiage.
Why doesn't that have to comply with the CSD?
With the 6?
Is that 82 and 82 there?
But really, our CSD, they really
The
do.
CSD trumps
They
the,
do.
the CSD
But
trumps
we have existing kennels here.
with their grandfather.
Well, no, we didn't say that in CSD, so quite frankly, it's really, it's in a violation of our CSD if they have more than 5 dogs on 4 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, okay, all right, that's, keep that battle for another day. Also, homemade, 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 that's the restaurant, okay. Tenant improvement due to change in owners, they changed owners?
I don't know, that's, I just copied what was on our plan.
That's good, we're not gonna divorce on that, that's more of an announcement, okay. All right, high-speed rail. Nobody?
Check.
Committee reports, we're gonna skip the inactive ones, unless someone really wants to show us. D, what?
The after C.
Public hearing, community meetings.
We don't have any.
We don't have it, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Let's see.
Election, and I have to say, we have 4 people that are running for 4 seats.
Yes, that is formally announced, all incumbents will run.
That's amazing.
Okay.
And I endorse
So,
them.
Well, I have one application already from Candy. They're due by the 25th.
okay.
Midnight, not, yeah, 8 p.m. I think it is, 8 p.m.
We'll get them in.
Yeah, so
All right.
Troy, for you have Troy, I would assume.
He is.
Troy's a
You're never in. Mary, Don Henry.
No,
No,
not
no,
You're not.
Troy,
I got
myself, Candy, and Lily.
Okay, I got it in here anyway, yeah.
no. Next year, right, okay. Film, report.
Okay, there were 2 approved films that I have to go on. Yesterday there was an incident on Agua Dulce Road that I was not aware of, and they closed up the road. People sat in their cars for 20 to 30 minutes in traffic. I called Film LA. They said, well, you don't have to have an actual permit for grid shooting because they go from location to location, because they're driving. And I said, well, it caused huge impact on our traffic. They're 2-lane road. People were stuck in their cars for almost a half an hour. So she gave me the number of the location manager. I called up John. Oh, no, that's not true. We only close the road for 5 minutes at a time. I said, let me read you the 20-some odd notes on Facebook of people that were stuck for 20 to 30 minutes. No, they're wrong. That didn't happen. So, and I have to say, Steve has supported me, whereas I can't get anything from Pauline.
Steve Cummins.
Yes. Pauline was supposed to sit down with me and go over what I was supposed to do. I'm on the council for almost 2 years now. I haven't had 5 minutes with the woman. I texted Steve at 11 o'clock last night because I didn't see this until 11 o'clock. He called me right away. He said, you haven't met with her? I'll set that up. Yes, he called me at 11 o'clock last night. said, he had his grandkids there, so he was fine. Just to say, little aside there. He said, I will get a hold of her. So I texted her at 8 o'clock this morning and said what had happened, because I hadn't gotten a hold of Donna yet. She didn't respond to me until 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'd already spoken to the location manager. He lied, because I can't say that 27 people on Facebook said they sat up there. In fact, Rick and his wife were stuck also for half an hour.
And a lot of people next door said the same.
So you talked to Phil LA.
Yes, and they washed their hands of it. They said but I asked people on Facebook to complain to Film LA.
Was it permanent?
It's not a real permit like you normally get.
Well,
Like the
notices
film,
and all
right,
that.
it's
Yeah.
not because it's
How
a
can
grid
they do
shoot, because they're shooting in different locations.
Oh, that's BS.
They initially asked to shoot on Sierra Highway.
Well, imagine if you
County-
get off the freeway, sorry to interrupt you, but imagine if you get off the freeway, you get to the churches, right? And, you find out that it's closed, you have to go all the way down to Escondido, go around. That adds, if you look, that adds 13 miles to your trip, right? And after waiting.
Well, think of the greenhouse gases. You're
And John, you're probably idle for some time.
So I asked everybody to complain to Film LA. I want Colleen to follow up on this. This was wrong. They initially wanted
She
to
came
film.
here and said that she wanted to work with us and, so.
I know, in 2 years I haven't spoken to them. They were supposed to be permitted on Sierra Highway. The county rerouted them to Agua Dulce Road. They said they had traffic control. I said, I beg to disagree with you. There was no traffic control. They said they had to. That's what they told me.
And I have an issue with the sign, because the sign says road work ahead.
Right. Yes.
I hate that. When I see road work ahead, I know it's filming.
Yes.
And that's BS. It needs to say film crew ahead.
Well, what I would like to do is have Colleen come here and speak to us, and because I said, we are film friendly, but don't do what you just did.
Right, that pisses people off.
What's the reason for
Shut
having
down
film
the road.
on it?
That's what I
Well,
said.
and it was the timing of it.
Absolutely.
All right, good enough, that's enough time. Okay, that's what you.
So get her here.
No,
Oh, and I did send a map of the boundaries to Film LA because they were not acknowledging any of the park at all.
All right, let's do it. Headquarters.
Headquarters.
No report. Okay, Parks and Rec. Water sewer check. Nothing from me yet. Wells are not doing that good, but we'll see if we get rain this year.
Yes.
Get a pipe, Texas. Ways and means. Nothing wrong. Okay. Disaster assessment. Okay. Acting, I will say, school board liaison.
We hired a new superintendent.
Awesome.
Larry King, and that's it.
Wow.
Larry King.
Acting town council liaison, Lily Smith.
I'm just thinking that the council the last meeting was August 21st because they didn't meet on Labor Day.
Okay.
And they had community input on the gravel trucks.
Yeah.
And containers are still a big problem in Acton. And because people have them and they're being cited now, even though they've had them for years and years and years. And so it's creating quite a turmoil for a lot of people. Let's see, they had a really good meeting with the county regarding the storage facilities, and the county has become more sympathetic since they were presented with rather elaborate presentation of photos and verbiage to show that some of the storage facilities in Acton are not properly screened, and the county has allowed them to do that, so hopefully there'll be some changes made on that. There's still controversy over changes to the CSD that the county is making without a whole lot of regard for the community. And that's probably going to come up again at the next meeting, which will be the 18th. And let's see. Those are the major things.
Okay. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, open forum. Anybody want to speak for 2.5 minutes? Yes, sir. Step right up. Let's hear it.
Thank you.
Short or non-controversial?
Thank you for hanging in there.
Love that French bread. Love the bread.
As I'm sure you're aware, anytime we get more than half inch or inch of rain, we got flooding problems, erosion problems up in Agua Dulce Road. You know, and then we'll have the road graders in, they're dumping dirt. I don't know how many times they've been out to fill, you know, the ravine in front of my house and everything. So this year, we finally got a new road superintendent, Carlos Pinea.
We did right next to your old house.
And so, I finally got hold of him and they agreed to come out and put in some gravel in front of my house in particular, and the house next to mine, because the fill they put in there was just sand. The mail lady got stuck a couple times because of those problems. But in talking to him, he acknowledged the ongoing problems. He talked about road design problems further upstream, and also the problem with an inadequate culvert that was put in Carroll Lane. So when I asked him what we could do about it, he said, nothing really, as an individual approaching him, but when I asked him about the town council, he said, absolutely, if the town council contacts him, then he can initiate some action to look into possible engineering changes to the road up just above Carroll Lane where it digs down and causes part of the problem. He can also look into whether they can put in a properly sized culvert at Carroll Road, because part of the problem is when the creek is flowing good, it overwhelms the culvert, it goes down Carroll Lane, then it goes through all the property up there, and then comes out and just roads things worse.
I lived there.
So the bottom line is, I'm just asking for the town council to get in touch with him, I've got his contact information. I realized when I came here to print out and with myself, send his business card to Tom. So if you guys can contact him, I think he's willing to work to say, what can we do to the county to fix it? Because one of the problems he acknowledged was that it's poor design in the road and stuff, but with the last repaving of the road, they shifted the creek from one side to the other. So you look at the county maps, they show the creek on the other side of the road, people have paved driveways, and on the other side they don't.
Now, does that have anything to do with what you had sent me about the shoulder? Just bring it up around.
No, you know, across the street from you, they're planning on, you know where it comes out of the property next to you, this downstream? And it comes shooting across the road. They plan on paving, continuing the paving that's downstream there, up about 300 feet to catch that water instead of eroding into that guy's hillside or his roadside. They're going to pave that to catch it as a swell and send it downstream. So it seems to me like they're already doing some engineering. We just need to address the stuff upstream from you.
Yeah, the big problem you see now is right at Carroll Lane, where that culvert just isn't sufficient, and that just causes all sorts of other problems.
Yeah, it will deteriorate the road.
Well, yeah, and it's expensive, because every time it rains, they're not there.
Yeah.
Brian, just send me that information, I'll make sure that.
Yeah, I'll give this to you tonight, but I'll give it.
Give that to Mary.
And then the second item, very briefly, I didn't know, he might be the contact. Given the last couple of incidents where we've had the 14 and the 5 closed and traffic backs up horrendously, and we don't have the escape valve, if you will, a little bit Buchanan, can we contact the county and get some sort of statement on when they plan to reopen it? I know he's involved in working on it, and also know the Forest Service would love to see it stay closed, but that's an important, escape route for us, we're very limited,
What are you talking about?
Sand Canyon?
Wasserita Canyon?
Sand Canyon turns into Little Tonga.
Little
Little
Tonga.
Tonga's been closed.
It's opening
The sand
soon.
plant. What?
It's opening soon.
I've been hearing that for 9 months.
No, I got something.
No, she would know, Brian.
Okay, that'd be great, that's that, I don't know another request.
See, awesome again.
Yeah, if you hear it from her, it's happening.
They were talking about doing a press conference that they were having back and forth about it, and they decided, no, just open the road.
Okay, no work is cutting, okay.
You know what, can you do me a favor and just write your email address on here?
And your
Because
phone number.
that way then you can, I'll contact you and get the real details.
Okay.
And that way, instead of me trying to interpret it, you can just tell me. And I'll just.
And I think the letter just wants to address